Don't come to Tenerife. Tourists are not welcome. Canarians don't want tourism. People are being attacked on the beach. They're holding up placards with tourists go home. And that's not been lost in translation either. They don't want any tourism on a tourist island that largely relies on the economy of tourism. Let's have a little think about that. What else have I heard since I've been here? Oh, Mount Tady's about to erupt. The volcano is about to go off. I've heard that about 4 or 5 times. Forest fires are heading towards your hotel. So people need to be careful. On holiday, tourists need to be careful because you're going to get burnt alive, even though that was right up in the mountains, miles away from any tourist spots, and largely just forest fires, just trees burning. What else did I get? Friend of mine sent me a picture of BBC News. Tenerife is sinking. People urged not to go on their holidays because the whole island apparently is submerging into the water. What else have we got? Over the Jay Slater thing. People are randomly going missing. It's not safe. Not just one lad that was, by all accounts, a bit of a scally hanging around with the wrong crowd doing naughty things that we won't discuss on this YouTube channel. All of a sudden gets mixed up in the wrong situation, in the wrong crowd. No. Don't send your teenage sons or daughters or grandchildren to Tenerife, or in fact, you don't go there yourself because people are going missing. What else have we got here? We've got pickpockets are rife. Muggers are waiting outside your hotel room to get you and grab your cash. Right, let's just hold up. Let's just take a breath. Let's have a little think about this. And let's talk about the sensationalization of the UK media. And let's approach it from somebody who lives here in this island with my wife and children. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. And thanks, first of all, can I say, for all the feedback and all the comments on the last video about whether Tenerife is dying or not. Just quickly touching on that. I would say largely people still enjoy coming here, but I think it's, if you look through the comments, as I did, I read them all and I tried to reply to them all, so thank you for that. I think it's pretty unanimous that things have changed, and I think it's pretty unanimous that things have got more expensive. But then my retort to that would be the world has become more expensive. I think that's beyond a doubt. And also I had a bar owner from the Vault, I think it was JD that wrote the message from the Vault, that said maybe get a bar owner on to get their perspective as to why they've had to put the costs up, make things more expensive in terms of produce and transporting costs and stuff like that, which again, I think is totally fair because the other side of the coin, and we'll go on to today's subject in just a minute, but just addressing the last video, I think the other side of the coin is when I go back to the UK, and if I've not been there for a little while, I notice the difference in prices. So I think the cost of things is to be expected in terms of produce and your meals and your shopping and things you buy here. I think the bigger problem is the airlines now getting greedy, particularly with a lot of people used to, let me straighten this camera because it's annoying me a little bit. I think a lot of people used to come on their trips and come with just hand luggage, but now you're getting charged a fortune for hand luggage, for seats, for fuel, supplement. I think it's making it spiral out of control. So that's that. The other thing in regards to the last video, a lot of people saying that they don't feel quite as safe. They feel like maybe the atmosphere has changed. But again, just to give some balance, I think the world's changed, hasn't it? I think the world doesn't feel safe anymore. I mean, I grew up in East London, the East End of London, which now is not a very nice place generally. But back then I felt safe walking the streets and stuff. And you'll often hear people of an older generation, like my nan and granddad's generation, and maybe the sort of age of some of the people watching this, you'd say you could leave your door open, you know, and everybody knew each other and there was a sense of community. Would you do that in 2025? No matter where you live, would you do that? No matter what country you live in, would you do that now? And just lastly, this whole thing about muggings and pickpockets, a lot of the time, the people that cause the problems here are the Brits. A lot of the time, the people that are drunk are making people feel unsafe and throwing up everywhere, whether it's stag nights, out drinking too much, or people consuming too much alcohol and drugs, even, whether it's people being sick everywhere in Las Americas. I mean, this is a thing. years ago, I've been coming here since I was 3 years old, and I've obviously lived here over a decade. I definitely used to think it was a lot cleaner here, but then the counter argument to that is if you've got tourists and people sort of being yobbos, being sick all over the place, how many times can you keep coming out and scrubbing the streets and fixing the wreckage that the tourism leaves behind? But we're going to get into the whole tourist debate and what it actually means. Now, I think it's been misconstrued in just a moment. But spoke to somebody recently who said that they had an experience that somebody got mugged outside their hotel, which is awful. Of course, it's awful. But that happens everywhere in the world. In fact, it's so rare here that these incidents end up on the local news. They end up in the news. But I'll ask you to consider this. Just ponder this. Put any major city in the world or any UK town into Google, and then followed by a mugging or stabbing, and you will get a list of incidents, a list of things that have taken place there. Goodness me, I come from East London, as I mentioned. If I was to put in Google mugging or attack in East London or stabbing in East London, I would get a list. I'll be sport for choice. You'd need a 24-hour news channel just to report the amount of crime that goes on in the inner cities, be it London, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool. So I can tell you this, although the world has changed and the world has got dark, I still think this is one of the safest places in the world. Obviously, be vigilant whilst you're a tourist. Obviously, be mindful of where you put your valuables and whether you've got your purse or your phone on display. And it shouldn't need to be like that, but the world sadly is like that now. So let's just get into some of the things now about what's annoying me. I get sent things all the time from the UK media. Like I've just mentioned, I've got a little list here in front of me. So if you see me glancing off to the side, that's why. I genuinely have had from people, are you okay? Are you safe? Because Mount Tabor, the volcano, is about to erupt imminently. I've had that 4 or 5 times. As you can see, I'm not surrounded by ash clouds and lava, and that hasn't happened. There's also been numerous reports about the seismic activity. They monitor Tabor, and they can tell years ahead before anything's going to happen. It lets off gases, and it lets off pressure, and that's when you get the little rumbles right up in the mountains. We don't feel them here. We don't feel them down here. But that all of a sudden becomes, for a tabloid like The Sun, that all of a sudden becomes, there's been 46, they're calling it earthquakes in the last 24 hours. Don't go to Tenerife. Forest fires, nowhere near us. They happen every year. They happen when it's dry. Somebody throws a cigarette out or somebody has a barbecue right up in the mountains. There's pine trees up there. Forest fires go on for days and days. It's normally a lot of struggle to get them put out, but they're put out. No one dies from them. Doesn't affect anyone's home. Certainly doesn't affect tourism. People going missing, not true. Muggings and pickpockets, like I've said, no more than anyone else. And let's not even talk about what the media did with COVID. I mean, surely some of you don't trust the media. Surely some of you can see now some of the things we're told, but let's not get into that hornet's nest. What I want to really reference today is a lot of the comments said that I don't want to go there if we're not wanted there. I don't want to go there if I'm not safe. Listen, I live here with my 4 small children. You know that. I've not seen a single protest. I've not seen a single placard. I've not felt threatened. I've not felt not wanted. I've not seen anything going on. I see on the news, the media again, that there has been a couple of protests in the north. I read in one of the mainland Spain tabloids that tourists felt fear of being attacked on the beach. Listen, this is not happening. Let me try and explain what you're seeing. So in case no one's explained this to you. So at the moment, the cost of living is hitting the Canary Islands the same as it's hitting the UK or wherever you might be watching this. The world's getting more expensive and the cost of living has gone up exponentially, especially the price of houses. Now, when I first moved here 11 and a half years ago, we rented a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment with a wraparound terrace and balcony. And we paid for that €535 a month, including bills, so 500 quid. And if you consider back then, the exchange rate went up to as much as 142 to the pound, so nearly 1.5 times your money. So you're looking at maybe what, 350 quid, for a 3-bed, 2-bathroom place just outside Los Cristianos. Now, you're lucky if you can get a studio apartment or a 1-bed apartment in the tourist areas for less than 1,200-1,400 quid. We were recently looking online to get a 4 or 5 bedroom house the size of the one that we have now. You're looking at not getting much change out of 2,700 euros. This is causing a problem. Look, fortunately, I'm lucky enough to earn decent money in the job that I do, and I'm lucky enough to be very, very busy. So we get by as a family, and we have a nice home, and we have a nice life. But with the exception of COVID, as you will remember the situation there, and a lot of you helped us out. But just consider that you're on a meager wage. The wages, the average wage on nothing like the UK here in Canary Islands, and I know waiting staff and bar staff that are earning a little over €1,000 a month. Some more, some less, depending on their hours. That's without the tips. People are not tipping as much, and that's a whole nother debate for another day. But then they're having to go and share with maybe 2-3 other bar staff or waiting staff in a 1 or 2 bed apartment because they can't afford to get a place of their own. It's not impossible to get a mortgage. I've been trying to get a mortgage for 11 years. I've declared quite a lot a month. Before COVID, I had a deposit of all the money for the fees, but still they refused to give me a mortgage here because some would say it's because I'm not a national, because I'm an English person, but I don't know. Again, that's a debate for another day. The reason I largely got was because I have children. I'm high risk. Now that to me was a little bit hickledy-pickledy, because surely somebody who's got small children is more likely to keep up his mortgage payments and make sure the roof stays over his children's head. But the way the law works here is tenants are protected. They're largely protected. And if I was to not pay the mortgage or not pay the rent, they would have a struggle to get me out, because I would have squatters' rights as I have children in the house, which of course I'm not somebody who would ever do that. But then therefore it's too much of a risk for them to give you a mortgage, even though you've obviously got to go and then pay exponentially more rent to stay in a place. So it doesn't make any logical sense. But let's get back to the heart of the matter. So what it is the Canarian people are, and I don't speak for them, this is just my understanding, what they are getting upset with is non-nationals, non-Canarians, non-Spanish coming into the country, buying properties, not living in it and being integrated as part of the community, but rather renting them online illegally without the correct insurances and permits, and making a fortune out of holiday rentals. So now, consequently, there is a massive shortage of properties here on the island. This is resulting in rent prices going up through the roof. Of course, again, as I explained with the rules with squatters now, people are so reluctant to rent their places out to you in case you don't pay the rent, you default on it, and you just sit in there as a sitting tenant with squatters' rights. It's a whole long, arduous process through the courts. So this is having a knock-on effect. So what they're saying is not tourists go home. What they're actually asking for in their manifesto is more rights for Canarian people and to bring the cost of housing down. Because the average Canarian person, the average Canarian waiter or taxi driver or barman, they can't afford to either buy a place or to even rent a place for themselves. And those properties, look, I always give this analogy, right? If there was one apple tree on the whole island, and then you would get a yield of maybe 50 apples a year, those apples would be charged at a premium, right? You'd have to charge, I don't know, €100 an apple, right? But if you had apple trees everywhere and there was an abundance of apples, so the old saying, they're 10 a penny. You'd be able to sell them for next to nothing. We're in a situation now in the Canary Islands where people I know that are working, couples that are both working, that have a decent amount of income coming in, are really struggling if they need to go and dip their toe in the rental market to go back to find a new apartment, a new place, because the houses are at a premium, apartments are at a premium now because there's such a shortage. The whole reason for these protests yeah, which are not on the beaches, which are not in the tourist areas. There was an organised one in a part of Santa Cruz, as far as I know, here in Tenerife. The whole reason for it, and there's a loss in translation, it's not tourists go home, it's let our people, our native people, be able to live first, you know? And maybe you've got views on immigration where you live. Maybe you've got views on how people from other countries are coming into your country and maybe getting higher up on the list of priorities, maybe getting more than you that have paid tax into the country all your life. Let's have a little think about that from their perspective. Imagine you're at a point where your kids can't leave home and fly the nest when they're in their early 20s. It's very common. My neighbours, there's 3 generations of them living over the road. You've got the grandparents, you've got the parents, and you've got the kids all living under one roof because people can't afford to go out, fly the nest and buy or even rent at the moment. So that's what they're asking for. That's what the protests are about. Unfortunately, when things get translated from one language to another, it's basically tourism, not go home. I think that's the wrong wording, what they've said there. I actually think they're saying put us first and not build new things for the tourists. There's new hotels that have been given planning permission to go up so that we can flood the country with yet more tourism. We addressed in the last video the amount of cars on the road now, unbelievable amount of hire cars, so that people here struggle to get to work. We've now got, we never used to have a rush hour now. There's one main motorway, really, the TF1, from about 3 o'clock till about 7 o'clock now. That's gridlocked. Doesn't help that there's roadworks going on at Ashtafiris and diversions and whatnot. But the point is, this is a small little island and we don't have the infrastructure to take in the amount of people that we have at the moment. Now, especially with tourism. Let's not get it wrong. Without being rude to any Canarians watching this and of Canarian friends, without tourism, this island would really struggle, wouldn't it? Before tourism, it largely was just shipments of bananas, banana plantations, tomatoes, farmland, you know. It's a thriving economy now. In reference to his Tenerife dying, the question I posed last time, a lot of people pointed out that the figures for tourism are at an all-time high. Whilst that's true, where do those tourists stay? Not just in hotels, but in private apartments, in private holiday rents, you know, holiday lets. But consequently, think about the people that are here to serve you on your holiday, entertain you, pour your drinks, cook and serve your meals. Where do they live? And that largely is the problem at the moment here. But this video today was really just to highlight the nonsense, scaremongering that you're getting in the UK press. I've given you several examples about earthquakes being recorded when it's the rumblings from the gases being released from Taylor. 4 or 5 times I've been told, "Are you okay?" You know, because Mount Tady's about to erupt imminently. Just looking back at my list, Tenerife is sinking. I mean, they said that once about in England, didn't they? You know, a friend of mine was going to buy a property in the Bournemouth area of England about 15 years ago. They told him that on the peninsula, if he bought it in 15 years, that place would be underwater. It's not. It's a really thriving area now, seaside resort. Certainly there's no protesters attacking people on the beach. Certainly you are welcome. Certainly you are needed as tourists. We really need the tourism. Without tourism, I've got no one to sing to, you know? There's no one for taxi drivers to take around. There's no restaurants and bars and people in hospitality. There's no hotel workers. You know, we said about people going missing. That's not true. It was one teenage kid with not a great reputation and a couple of other incidents, normally involving alcohol. Muggings and pickpockets sadly does happen, but it happens anywhere. It's very rare here. I don't have any problem when my 17-year-old daughter finishes work at 9 o'clock, walking to the bus stop and then me picking her up at the other end of the bus. I wouldn't do that in England. There's no way, but I feel safe with her. And again, I'd like to draw your attention and your memory back to some of the things that were said during COVID in the pandemic. You know, the media, you can't trust what they say. It's salacious. It's headlines. I don't know what they get from it. I don't know why they would want to stop people going on their holidays. But sadly, this is a situation we're in. So really, this is me just wanting to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you can like and subscribe, that'd be great as well. But this is our little island, and we need to protect it and its reputation. We do need tourism. We do welcome tourism. Even the Canary folks, again, down my street lives a taxi driver. You know, we were speaking recently, and he said, without the tourists, you know, who am I? Who am I dropping around? How do I make my living? How do I feed my family? So you are welcome here. Don't believe the crap that you read in the Sun or on the BBC News. I've seen no attacks. I've seen no protests. I've seen nobody feel unwelcome. You're still going to get the same warm welcome that you get in the bars and restaurants. They're still, whether they like you or not, they're still going to want your return custom and your money, because that's what makes the world go round. So just take a breath and think about these headlines and think about what they're actually now have explained, what they're protesting for. The cost of living, the cost of housing. They just want it back. They just want to be able to live in their own country without other people coming in, buying up, and taking a monopoly on everything and driving the prices up. So, and I think that's fair enough. Again, reference how you might feel about the way the UK, for example, handle immigration. You know, let me know what you think, everybody. Thanks for listening. Don't panic. You'll get a warm welcome here. We need the tourists. You're all loved. You're all welcome. And I know you love coming over here. Till next time, interact with me. Let me know what you think. I'll see you soon. I hope to catch up with some of you soon. Happy holidays.